Hello, educators. My name is Livio Bolzan. I'm one of the co-founders of Codemoji. So today I'm going to go over the JavaScript beginner lessons that can be found here in the beginning lesson section of the courses tab of the student dashboard. I'm showing these from the student view. In your teacher dashboard, you have access to a lot of different stats, and you can find these resources that go over some of the different information. In the resource tab, we have some videos there, along with these videos and different resources from printable tests to lots and lots of vocabulary cards and much more. So now I'm going to go over the JavaScript beginning lessons and kind of a few ways how we feel you should teach them and kind of what the lesson is going over. So I'm going to jump into the first lesson now. So these courses are all about understanding, basic logic of some functions. So if I do this, this happens. If I do that, this happens. So these are just a very introductory course. In our later and more advanced lessons, we go over this in more in depth, and kids start to understand more and more about loops and different functionality. So as always, we have text-to-speech on all of our lessons that are designed for younger students. So first lesson, we're going to learn about rotating. So we're going to learn how to rotate the Panda and kind of what that means. So basically, a function from the functions container will go over to the sequence container and we'll run an event. And you can kind of think of this as, you need something to turn on your lights. If the light is turned up, the light is on. If the light switches down, the light is off. So that's how you can kind of think of that. On this lesson, we have a sounds tab, and all these are grayed out as we are not using them. And we have one character here to keep it consistent. We have some background colors. The students can change these whenever. We also have our friendly level tracker here, along with a reset button and a help button here. We also have a reset button, so this will reset the character to its initial state. This will reset the code that is in the sequence container. If you get the lesson wrong, we have a hinter image here and tells you instructions again about where to put which function. We also have the functions like move grayed out, so hopefully it's a little bit clearer what you have to do initially so the students can quickly grasp it. So we just drag the rotate function to the sequence container, and that was the right answer. We can see the Panda did a 360, and that is because its initial state was 360 degrees, and the duration we gave it was 1.5 seconds. So that was lesson one, and now we're going to jump into the rest of the lessons. We also have the checkpoint quizzes as always. These help create the customized lesson plan for each student at the end. So lesson two, we're going to then start to understand about moving the Panda around from different sides of the screen. And it's very similar to the first lesson, but now we're understanding that we can move the Panda using this move function. Over here, you will see the X and Y coordinates of the Panda. So right now it's at a 0, 0 state. As we add a function, which in this case is move, that it'll by default the answer will have it moving 100 pixels horizontally, 100 pixels vertically at a duration of 1.5 seconds. So we can see once we view the animation, we can see the character moves 100 pixels by 100 pixels, which were the instructions that we gave it. So you can kind of explain in a classroom, you're standing there, I am at my desk, and I move 5 steps up and 5 steps to the right. So I just moved at certain coordinates, and that's what's happening in this lesson. So now we're going to go over scale. So scaling is a function that basically will scale the Panda up or down. So we're going to scale it 1.5, its initial scale, again at a duration of 1.5 seconds. So once we do that, we can see the Panda has been scaled up. So you can kind of also explain what scale means and how it relates. Like I have a really small dog that's at a small scale, and you have a very big dog at a big scale. So you can kind of explain it like that, like a puppy to an adult dog or animal. So these are just starting to get the students acclimated to some of the basic functions that we have designed. So now we're going to go over Skew. So Skew is changing the Panda's horizontal and vertical state. So in this case, we are going to skew the Panda 30 degrees by 30 degrees. And you can see he got skewed in this case. It's just one of the other functions we have. The biggest thing we really want students to understand are that degrees, and when we change those degrees and we change the duration, it'll create a different chain of events or a sequence of events. So here we have a checkpoint quiz again. You can just have them answer that. So now we're going to get the Panda to talk. This is one of my favorite ones when we designed this. So now we're going to get the Panda to talk. We're going to default it to Hello World, which is a very standard thing most developers use. I'm not sure where it came from initially, but it's very commonly used. We're going to give the color blue, and we're going to have it run again at 1.5 seconds. So after we do this, we can see the Panda just talked Hello World for 1.5 seconds, and the text color was blue. So now we're going to get into some really awesome lessons. Now we're going to change the variables behind the function. So in this case, we're going to change the amount of rotation from its initial state, which is 360 degrees, to 720 degrees. So this first lesson might be a tad tricky for students. They sometimes don't always think to click on it and type in a new degrees, but this is what they need to do. So this is them understanding that now we, as a person, can change the variables and the action that the function has by giving it our own input. And this is just very much trying to problem solve along with understand some basic functions. So since we just multiplied the initial rotation by twice to 720, we can see the Panda rotated much faster than the very first time we ran it. So now we're going to edit the move variable. So the move, we're going to change it from 100 pixels to 300 pixels. These lessons are designed to really make sure the student is always reading what is going on. The text-to-speech can help for some of the younger students. So now we can see we moved it 300 pixels by 100 pixels. So we can see we moved its coordinates. Again, we can always change the background just for fun. So in this, we're going to change the scale all the way from 0 to infinity. You can always change the scale as much as you want. In this case, we are going to change it from 1.5 to 0.5, not 5.5. This is a very something you have to make sure you keep in mind when dealing with this. So we changed it to 0.5 in this case, which will shrink the Panda. So now we can explain that what happened was its initial state was 1.5 at a scale of 1.5, and we lowered that by one of its initial scale, and we got a smaller image here. So you can understand now they're really understanding what is the different function behind each like box or function that we gave it. So now we're going to skew the Panda to 60 degrees from 30 degrees. And again, we're going to skew the horizontal from 30 degrees to 60 degrees. So horizontal 30 to 60. So now let's see what happens. So now we just changed the horizontal state of it from 30 to 60, and you can see we made the Panda disappear. So that was pretty cool. So now we're going to change the talk variable. So now we're going to add our own text to it. And in this case, it wants us to add my name is Bamboo. And it is case sensitive, just to make it a little bit trickier. This is like one of our midpoint lessons. So in this case, I just copied it to save a little bit of time, as this video will be a tad long. So there we go. Which one represents speech? This one represents speech. So now we're dealing with two functions at once. So I've also went from 3 modals to 1 modal, as hopefully the students now at this point, through 10 lessons, have a better core understanding of what is going on, and they can more quickly and easily move through the rest of the course. So we're going to drag both the rotate and the move function to the sequence container, and now we're going to run those. So now we've added 2 functions. So now 2 events are going to happen when we click run. So students can understand, like sometimes when it rains, it's also gonna lightning. So these are 2 events happening at the same time, or a very similar time. So we can see it rotated and then it moved in order, not at the same time. Now we are going to add a rotate and a scale. So now the Panda is going to rotate and scale. So again, this is just trying to make the lessons a little bit harder, but also make sure that students are still understanding about more events and different functions that they can give each elements, and elements working together to create different events. So lesson 13, we're talking about rotate and skew. And these work together to create some pretty interesting projects that we've seen students make over the years. And these are just basically using 2 functions to work together to create an end goal. And in this case, we're going to see the Panda rotate and also skew. So you can see these have the initial values that they did in the first lessons, but now we're using a couple together. So now we're going to get to move and scale. So we're just understanding how each function is working together with another function. So this will go on. Our lessons, we have a double JS lessons that basically have 2 different animations running at the same time, which is quite interesting. Basically understanding how 2 different images can both have different functions and work together. And those are pretty awesome. Those are a good stepping point after this quiz. And we also have intermediate JS as well. Those are pretty awesome. Those are basically talking and typing some of the same key functionality, but students are typing. So I'm going to quickly go over the last couple courses here, as most of them are relatively straightforward. I think the basic concepts to really make sure you cover in this when you're just introducing the students are what the 5 different functions or blocks do. Again, we also think you should also cover the different understanding of the X and Y coordinates, the different events that are happening, how these are working together, and what it means to change the values behind a block to make it do a certain action. We also think you should kind of explain why that they're learning this, and fundamentally, you're learning this to be able to solve problems but also have a good understanding of the fundamentals of how websites are written, and they're all written through events. So these are events that are happening that are creating an end action. So you can think of this as when you go to Google and you type in hello world, whatever comes up happened because of an event. You gave it information, it went back, it processed it through a function, and then gave you an answer. So as you can see, we have a large amount of lessons. If you have not already went through them, like I said, I'm going to power through the rest of these. So skew and talk, the Panda is going to skew and talk at the same time. You can see we're leveling up every time we complete a lesson. We've seen that students really like that to get to the next level, compete against their friends, and much more. So now we're going to add 3 functions. So now we're understanding how everything is working together, which is very cool. So now we're going to have 3 events that happen throughout the sequence. And eventually, when the students go to the workshop and kind of build their own project, they can see that they can add a bunch of events. Sometimes students need to be careful. If they repetitively hit the run button a million times, sometimes our system has a protocol that will just deactivate the student from doing that, more as like a safety precaution, so they don't go crazy, and they also keep learning. So now we have just added 3 more functions: rotate, scale, and skew, and you can see our result here. It doesn't look super pretty, but we can see that all 3 of those events happen. So lesson 23 here is going over move, scale, and skew. So these are all mostly using the default values. That is because some of our later lessons focus on changing the values more and more. And these just are working on some of the basic values to keep the students quickly moving at all age levels. So now we're going to add these last couple functions, and we see it being super helpful to have the other ones grayed out. As while we were testing this, some students were getting a little confused when we had all 5 options always available. So now we're going to rotate and scale and talk. So we can quickly do that right here. Now we have one of our last checkpoint quizzes. Now we have 2 options, and this is go to the dashboard or go to the playground. Playground is designed for our HTML lessons. In this case, we're going to want to go back to the dashboard, and then we're going to want to make our own project, which in this case would be a workshop project. So you can see now the students have kind of a more open area, and they have other characters they can use. So we think after the students have went through all those lessons, or even just a portion of those, maybe giving them some time to make some of their own projects and save them might be a good idea. We also unlock the sounds here. Be careful with these, as if you're running the functions over and over again, it can get a little noisy. So make sure the students either have their own headphones or that you have a rule about this. So this has been a quick overview of our basic JavaScript beginner lessons. And please let us know if you have any questions. We're doing our best to give you as many resources as possible to be successful. Thank you for your time, and emoji on.